Welcome back, guys. I'm Zell, and we're here at the KME again, and we've got a Spyderco Polestar to sharpen up. Full flat grounds. You may want to stick around for some tips. Alright guys, so our full flat ground blade, like the Spyderco Polestar, how do we go about getting one of these things in the clamp system? Because, of course it's full flat ground, so we've got an angle all the way down. Well, first off, if you're using the KME system, you can see here that we have a little bit of edge, and then we have some more rubber, and it kind of falls down in those areas. And what that allows you to do is grab a hold of some of the thinner blade stock full flat ground knives. I'm not sure if this Polestar is going to work out that way, but some of them do, some of them don't. The thicker the blade stock or the shorter the blade, the more severe the angle of your full flat grind, and the more severe angle, of course, you have problems. And if you do have problems, I'll show you what to do. So we'll try this Polestar and see what happens. Opens up good. See if we can get it in there the way we want it. And tighten it down. That Polestar is going in there pretty tight, so I'm not going to worry about doing anything extra. But if the Polestar did not go in there nice and tight, here's exactly what I would have done. See these? It's 3M command strips. You could use double-sided tape as well. I just use these command strips because we always seem to have them around here. But I'll just cut me two small sections off, and on the back of the blade I'll lay one right here and one right there, right at the end of where I want to clamp it, and tighten the clamp down over those. That'll minimize movement for your blade. I've used it successfully on lots of Spydercos, especially some of the thicker bladed ones, your militaries, paramilitaries, etc. Alright, I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but whenever I put this Polestar in here, I didn't line it up with the spine of the blade. Now, in a lot of knives with normal blade geometry, I guess you could say, or blade shapes, you would put it in line with the blade. This 702 from WE, yeah, you would put it in there almost in line with the spine of the blade, because your sweep is not much. It's not nearly as dramatic as it is on the Spyderco in relation to the spine of the blade. So whenever we put a Spyderco in, if we put it in line with our spine, we end up with this. Problem with this is it will change our angle a lot as we move up and down the blade. It'll be a more severe angle here and a lot shallower angle back here, and it's just not going to look right. So we have to adjust that blade so that our edge is running as straight across as possible to keep that angle as consistent as possible across there. It's not going to be perfect, but you want it to be pretty darn close. Alright, as per usual, we want to get a little bit of this stuff wrapped around this Polestar. It's got some kind of neat handle material. We'll talk about that whenever we do the review on it. And everybody wants to thank Nick for sending this guy in. You guys know him as STASS23, I believe. But he sent this in so we could get a look at it. And it is an interesting knife. We'll be talking more about that here real soon. Especially this handle, the overlay on the G10 is really, really neat. Anyhow, we'll get down to it. We're going to find our angle just like normal. Use our black Sharpie and our 1500 grit stone. And we're going to close this Delica up before I cut myself. That sucker's really sharp. That's an interesting one. We got a Spyderco at, I have to get the angle cube out. That's seemed pretty tall for a Spyderco. All right, we got the angle cube. And guys, if you don't have one of these guys, this is just a cheap one. I'm not even sure where I bought it. But once you have one of these, and I bought it specifically for sharpening. I had used other sorts of levels for other things. And I just wanted a more precise gauge for sharpening. And, oh man, I have found dozens and dozens and dozens of uses for this little guy. So if you don't have one, you can get them at your local discount store for tools for, I don't know, 15 or 20 bucks. They're worth every penny if you do anything around the house. Anyhow, like I was saying, that angle looks a little severe, a little wide for Spyderco, but we're going to find out. Okay, it is at 19.7 degrees. Wow. Oh, so that means it's decision time. I usually take a Spyderco back to around 15 degrees. But since this is not my knife, it's Nick's, and if I take this thing back to 15 degrees, it's going to have a really, really wide secondary bevel, and we don't want that either. So I think what we're going to do is, since it's at 19.7, basically 20 degrees, we're just going to clean up the stock bevel and give it a really nice fine edge. And to do that, we're going to do the normal thing. We're going to go all the way back down to 50 grit and work our way up. So I'm going to get on that. I'll talk to you again whenever we get to the lapping films. There we go, that's 1500 grit, and quite honestly, you could stop right there. This thing is plenty sharp. Really sharp. But since we have the lapping films, we're going to clean everything up. Like I've said before, you definitely want to get everything cleaned up out of the way and not part of the lapping film process, because those lapping films, once you get past the first couple of them, anything that might be on the blade will cause you problems, and you want to make sure and wipe down things between the lapping films. But anyhow, I'll wash my hands real quick and we'll get started on this. Alright, here we go. Starting off with 9 micron. Be sure with your lapping films to pull down and not push up. You just end up cutting a film if you do that. And we have pretty much mirrored up. That was 6 micron. We got one little problem spot back here at the base of the blade. We'll work on it a little more and then we'll move along. Alright, we had some technical difficulties. I took it down to 1 micron, and that's where we're going to stop. We have got a nice mirror polish on it. All I'm going to do now is run through real quick, and we're going to put about a 21 degree micro bevel on it, I think. I'm going to check where we were once again. I'm going to use the back side, the last side of one of these, and check our angle once again, just to be sure of where I'm at. Okay, we're showing 19.5 right there. So There's right about 21 degrees. And the reason I want to do that is this BD1 steel, people will tell you that it's only marginally better than 8CR13 MOV or AUS 8, and that's not my experience with the stuff. My experience with this stuff says that it's some pretty dang good stuff, but you have to pay attention to what you're doing with it. If you just put a standard bevel on it, you're 20 degrees per side or whatever, 18 degrees, whatever somebody does with a single secondary bevel, it does chip off pretty quickly. Not really chip off, kind of rolls off. This is nice fine grain steel, but it's not as hard, it's not as wear resistant as some of the higher end stuff that we kind of like to use. Your S30Vs, the M9, the M390s, ZDP 189s, the M4s. All those are pretty wear resistant, pretty hard steel. You also have a lot of impact resistance, and I don't think this steel has that. I think it's more, to me, it uses, wears, and sharpens like a really, really good version of VG10. And yeah, I just said that. I said this works like a really good version of VG10, and VG10 is the steel they put in some of the more expensive Spydercos. Take your base model Delicas and Enduras and some of those others. Well, yeah, and what Spyderco does there for some, well, okay, I do kind of know the reason. But what they do there is they leave that VG10 a little softer than necessary. And then you have the other steels around it, like this, like your BD1, like your 8CR13 MOVs, that, in reality, I think they come out to be better steels than Spyderco's version of VG10. Maybe not the 8CR13 MOV, because it's a kind of a loose grain steel. It's really a pain to sharpen properly. But this BD1, I would take it over VG10 any day of the week. Twice on Sunday. But anyhow, we've got our micro bevel established, and we'll put a little polish on it with our 1500 grit. And I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but what this does, besides giving you that edge stabilization, is we're only going to 1500 grit, which is a pretty fine edge, admittedly. But I've done some knives before, and I have taken the micro bevel all the way up to mirror polish right along with the secondary bevel. And if you're slicing soft stuff, oh my goodness, it's beautiful. But if you are, cutting normal things, your cardboards, your hunting knives, for skinning out a deer or something, it's not nearly as good. And this 1500 grit stone will leave this just a tad bit toothy. And I mean, it's really, really micro toothy, but it's nowhere near as finely apexed as it is whenever we get done with the lapping films. So that's one reason I do that, and I have done some for myself and for other people where I have went back and micro beveled at 300 grit so that edge was a little grabbier and a little toothier. Now that's not my preferred method. My preferred is to go to 600 and then 1500, because that still gives you a good mix, and it's mostly a fine edge with just a little bit of toothiness. Anyhow, let's see if this thing will cut the paper now that we're done with it. Well, I'd say that's a success. Anyhow, we'll get it down out of this and give it a real test. And this is that same junky old paper I've got. And it's really junky, and if I quit cutting my Band-Aid, whenever we go to that 21 degree edge, we lose some of that fine cutting. but still very sharp, as you see. It's just not as fine as, you know, a 17 or 18 degree micro bevel. But our secondary bevel is looking really, really good, and it's cutting really, really good. If you remember, this is that really, really bad paper. This stuff is, I don't know what happened to it. I think that stuff got damp, because, you know, there's phone book paper. If I can get the knife. Knife is just slicing right through that phone book paper. No problem whatsoever. If I quit cutting the Band-Aid. There you go. So, Nick's knife is now laser sharp. Get this thing unwrapped, and then very soon, very, very soon, Nick, I am working on these, getting them reviewed and getting them back to you. I just got this slam of knives all of a sudden, and I wanted to get yours sharpened so that you wouldn't have dull knives when you got them back. And that's one of the things here, guys. You know, if you send knives in and you're willing to let me sharpen them, I will. If it's something I'm interested in looking at, something I can get a review done on, you can send them in. I'll sharpen them up. They'll look like Nick's does here. I'll try not to cut myself next time, but anyhow, that's the Polestar, and that's how we sharpen it. And you guys have a wonderful day. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.